This is Andy from Business Minded. For as long as companies have existed, so has the drive to improve productivity and profits, whether that's getting greater output from machinery or more efficiencies and returns from employees. Of course, numerous models and approaches have been developed around productivity, whether that's Frederick Taylor's process-centric approach, scientific management, or the more motivation-based, the person-centric approaches of Hertzberg and Vroom. Even putting aside formal management models, a quick search on Google reveals a whole host of practical and sensible approaches to developing employee motivation and their productivity. Yet there is another extremely powerful and somewhat different approach too. Different in that the changes that lead to greater productivity come from within the person themselves. And that approach is to develop employees' mindfulness. Mindfulness is, of course, based on Eastern spiritual practices, but it's seen a huge surge of interest in the Western world over recent years and has been extensively studied by the scientific community. Mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy developed as treatments for stress, anxiety, and depression. And increasingly, the practices and ideas behind mindfulness are being deployed within the business world, with a wide variety of businesses seeing benefits from leadership teams through to frontline staff. When considering how mindfulness can help improve employee productivity, it's worth looking at a groundbreaking scientific study from 2010. It's well known that our brain is unique amongst the animal kingdom for its ability to roam beyond the here and now. So we can recall past experiences, we can consider a future, we can fantasize, we can plan. And this is called stimulus-independent thought, or more commonly, mind-wandering. And it's believed that mind-wandering is the default state for the human brain. Yet sitting alongside this is a view from many schools of philosophy that as human beings we are happiest when we exist in the here and now, when we are focused on the present moment. Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert undertook an extensive research project into these areas. And whilst the research was focused very much on happiness and mind wandering, the study provided some very, very interesting findings around productivity. The researchers wanted to get some real-time data on mind wandering and the level of people's happiness in that moment. And of course, bringing people into a laboratory and asking them questions, or stopping them in the street and conducting a survey is probably not the most efficient way to gain lots of real-time information. So they used some technology. People were invited to register at a website, trackyourhappiness.com. The survey questions were sent out to their smartphones over a period of months and at random intervals. And each sample involved 3 questions. The first, how are you feeling right now? And people could answer from 0 to 100 on a scale of very bad to very good. What are you doing right now? And people could answer via a checklist of some 22 common activities. And finally, are you thinking about something different to what you're currently doing? And people could respond with no, yes, I'm thinking about something pleasant, I'm thinking about something unpleasant, or I'm thinking about something neutral. And after a number of months, the study resulted in some 650,000 real-time samples from more than 15,000 responders. And the results are really quite fascinating. First off, the research showed that people's minds wander a lot. 46.9% of the time that people were asked, are you thinking about something different to what you're currently doing? They answered yes. And the mind wandering happened regardless of the activity the person was involved in. For example, 65% of the time, that people were showering or cleaning their teeth, they would be mind wandering. 50% of the time, when people are at work, their minds are elsewhere. The lowest instance of mind wandering, here on the end, is actually when people are making love. Secondly, the research shows that we are less happy when our mind wanders. And this holds true no matter what activity we're involved in or where our mind wanders to. So even if our minds wander to a happy thought, we are still marginally less happy than if it remains in the present moment. And as you would expect, if our minds wander to something unpleasant, then we're considerably less happy than we would be in the present moment. Finally, the study shows that it is a mind wandering that causes the unhappiness. So our minds wander and we become less happy. Not, as you might expect, that we're unhappy and therefore our minds wander. So what does this mean for us as employers? If our employees' minds are wandering from the task in hand 50% of the time when they're at work, what can we do about it? And if we can do something about it, what sort of impact might that have on our businesses? Our minds tend to wander away from the present moment without us even realizing that it's happened. So it's very likely, whilst you've been listening to this presentation, that you're thinking about shopping later, or popping to the pub, or going to the gym, or your next meeting. And that's fine. It's just what the human mind does. Mindfulness is about training our brains so we can recognize our thought patterns, our thinking habits. It's about developing the ability to stay focused in the here and now. Neuroscience has demonstrated that 6 to 8 weeks of mindfulness practice causes structural changes to the brain, resulting in lower stress levels, less worry, and decreased emotional reactivity, whilst increasing concentration, self-awareness, creativity, and well-being. Mindfulness meditation practices are specifically about staying in the present moment. So when we sit and undertake such a practice, we concentrate on one thing, for example, concentrating on the breath coming in and out of the body, and we notice at some point that our mind wanders away from that. We then gently bring the mind back to the one thing we're concentrating on, and we repeat that cycle throughout the duration of the practice. And it's that repetition of focusing on one thing, noticing when the mind wanders, and then bringing it back to that one thing that delivers the changes to the brain and the benefits of mindfulness. But of course, from a productivity point of view, it's that ability of mindfulness practice to enable us to stay present focused and to prevent our minds from wandering that can deliver the big productivity benefits. Here at Business Minded, we provide workplace mindfulness training, an evidence-based approach to mindfulness training developed specifically for the workplace. The approach is drawn from the work of the Oxford Mindfulness Centre and has been successfully applied in numerous organisations. If you'd like to find out more, then take a look at the website and of course make contact with us if you would like to discuss how we can help implement mindfulness within your organisation.